welcome to Kyle Talks at Random. In college, I had a libertarian political science professor assign us to read about some economic policies with a libertarian bent. But trying to avoid the cost of the bookstore, I was using Wikipedia to read about these policies. And I noticed on one of them, there was a see also to a theory called the market for lemons. This economic theory was a huge paradigm shift for me. The basis of the theory is that we are not as smart as we like to think. This is a really hard pill for most people to swallow. Probably the best example of the law I can find is represented in another YouTube video called Toddler Opens Gun Safes. You should pause this video. Go watch that one. Just pause it. I'll wait. I'll be here when you get back. So in case you didn't pause this and go watch the other one, the video is exactly what it says. It's a child opening a bunch of gun safes. Now you got to ask yourself, why do manufacturers produce safes that could be opened by a toddler? Is there a market demand for this? Why will people buy them? The reason people buy them is because they don't know any better. When they're at the store, they don't take it off the shelf, pull it out of the box, and sit there and play with it like a toddler for an hour, you know? And so they just don't realize that when these are played with for long enough, and then they'll pop open. This video did come about because of a tragic circumstance. A police department had provided all of their officers with a gun safe, and they said, your gun is on you or it's in the gun safe. Well, one of the police officer's son was shot with a gun. The police officer swore was in the gun safe. So the department sent the gun safe off to an expert and said, could this possibly be opened by a toddler? And that expert came back and said, oh yeah, no problem. And then just out of curiosity, he went and bought a bunch more and made this video about a toddler opening a bunch of gun safes. The free market principles I was taught teach that these safes shouldn't exist. Why would anyone buy a gun safe that could be opened by a toddler? The market for lemon explains the existence of these safes perfectly. The vast majority of consumers have no idea how to test a gun safe. Hardly anyone thinks to pull it out of the box and turn it upside down or, stick the screwdriver in it. You assume the manufacturer would at least test that, but why would they? Making a toddler-proof safe is more expensive and a consumer can't tell the difference. So consumers are going to buy the cheaper safe, making the toddler-proof safes the less common type of gun safe. That's the essence of the market for lemons. But you'll see it all over the place throughout history. I love the Stuff You Missed in History podcast. A while back, they had an episode on the swill milk scandal. You see, breweries created swill as part of the alcohol making process. It's the dross, the gross stuff that people won't eat or drink, but cows will. So the breweries bought cows, fed them the swill, and sold the milk from the cow. Boom! Score one for capitalism, right? Efficiency. Because the cows will eat swill, but it's not good for them. So it weakened their immune system and they got sick. Sick cows led to contaminated milk. The milk was so badly contaminated that it didn't look right. So the breweries added plaster of Paris and other ingredients in order to trick buyers. Now you're thinking once buyers taste the milk, they'll notice it's off and they won't buy it again. But adults didn't typically drink milk. The milk was given to infants. An estimated 8,000 infants died in 1 year from drinking swill milk. Whenever I think of regulation, I don't think of power-hungry bureaucrats. I think of agents for the public good protecting us from greedy companies that are willing to kill 8,000 infants. It's happened before. Market for lemons also explains why charter schools don't improve education. Parents aren't as smart as they like to think they are, and they cannot assess a school's added value. How can you determine if your student will do better in one school versus another without enrolling your student in both schools? The charter schools like to point to college enrollment rates, but studies have shown that charter school students tend to be students who would have gone to college when attending neighborhood schools. Driving your kid across town to a different school does not improve the odds of your child attending college. The fact that you have a career that allows you the flexibility to drive your kid across town to go to school is the more predictive factor. That same libertarian professor I mentioned earlier said that government's role in the economy is to reduce transaction costs. Building a road that gets me to the store reduces transaction costs. Ensuring that the food is safe to eat reduces transaction costs, because it's more efficient for us to hire one person to inspect the food at the factory than it is for each of us to test each individual food we buy before we consume it. I think market forces have a very important role to play in our economy. Market forces allow us to express preferences very minutely. You can pay more to get a phone with a better camera, or you can choose a more basic phone with a longer battery life. We get to pick our preferences, and I think that's great. But there are certain options we don't want. I don't want a phone with a battery that randomly explodes. I'm just not interested in that future. And I'm okay that the government works to prevent it. Thank you for listening to Kyle Talks at Random.